Hi everyone, welcome to Clutch Entertainment today. Today we have Josh on the show. He knows a decent amount about cars and you work on cars a lot?
I do, yeah.
Gotcha. What do you typically do on cars?
I do pretty much anything that makes sense to do myself as far as the financial standpoint. Change, part replacement, anything that is like transmission or something where you have to replace the engine, that's usually not worth doing in yourself. But yeah, pretty much anything I like doing.
Today we're many aspects, the qualities and properties that people want in cars and how you can decide getting a car based on a bunch of different factors and what makes a car good and bad. And we'll just take a look at a bunch of different things and I'll ask Josh some questions regarding what's going on with the cars and what you can do with cars. And yeah, we'll list some good cars, bad cars, low quality cars, basically is like the brands. And yeah, so we'll start off here with, so what are some good cars that you think are car brands that are good? Or
Generally Honda, Toyota, we have a couple written down here. Tesla's pretty good, BMW. Yeah, those are all pretty good, reliable cars. They have good quality parts, they're designed well, and common trend between those is that they're easy to work on and the parts are cheap, except for BMW, obviously.
Is it the fuel efficiency too that helps make them good?
The fuel efficiency is good too, yeah, definitely. And that kind of just comes with how well the car is designed. There's aerodynamics and weight savings, that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, and then there's the Tesla that has the electric stuff with it. Is that mostly all electric or is that also powered?
Tesla is all electric, yeah. So the big thing that makes Tesla stand out from its competitors is that they started designing their cars from the ground up as electric cars. A lot of the other brands, Ford, for example, they kind of take existing platforms and then turn them into electric cars, which is not the best in terms of efficiency and reliability because you're trying to cram parts into a frame that doesn't necessarily fit it. So
right.
They also have a really good design process. So Elon Musk, he's big on changing and learning from their mistakes, whereas some of these other companies that build electric cars, they're
based off gas cars first.
Yeah, they're based off of gas cars, and also they don't really revise their designs very much, just because it can be expensive, especially if your factories aren't designed for quick revisions.
Right.
So,
right. Does Toyota have an electric vehicle?
I believe they might have one or two all electric vehicles, but they do have quite a few hybrid vehicles. So they're kind of waiting a bit because they are a bit behind the curve as far as electrification, but they're very focused on battery technology. So they want to make sure that whenever they put out electric cars, fully electric, that it's a very good car. So.
Yeah, I gotcha. So what are some average car brands?
Yeah, average cars. So again, there's always going to be some models that are better than others, but generally average cars, we've got Hyundai, Ford, Mazda, Chevy,
Mitsubishi.
Yeah, Mitsubishi. I would say those are pretty average. They have some good hits and some misses as far as specific models. And
what are some of those hits and misses? Is it something to do with like the parts, the availability?
Probably mainly it's reliability.
Okay.
Yeah. So how well it's designed, what kind of focus they put on for the vehicle. For example, Ford, one of the ways that they've kind of veered off the path a little bit is they have a big focus on fuel efficiency and miles per gallon, and that kind of comes at a cost, at least for them, for quality and reliability. So, for example, some of their more modern turbocharged vehicles, they put those in for fuel efficiency, but
They break down easier.
they can break down easier because this is getting a little bit into the specifics, but they need more cooling, so the engine can actually, the coolant can leak into the engine, into the cylinders.
That isn't good.
Yeah, that's really bad. So yeah, it's certain things like that that make a car average as opposed to very good.
Gotcha. So what about like some low quality car brands?
Yeah, look, some of these are actually car brands that aren't around anymore, like Pontiac, for example. That's kind of for, it's kind of obvious why. But some other ones, Kia, these are cheaper brands, and
Is Kia Chinese? I can't remember.
I believe they're South Korean.
South Korean. Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, I've known they've had a lot of problems. My parents used to have a Kia, and they always had to go to
Yeah,
the shop.
yeah, they have gotten better over time, so they have improved a bit, but in the early days, like 2000s, they were not very good at all. Yeah, so Nissan, Jeep, Dodge, Volvo. Another thing that is common that you'll see is they're just not really designed very well. They use cheaper parts. Again, usually with cars, it's you get what you pay for. You're going to pay more for a Honda, Toyota, because it's going to last you a lot longer. So it makes sense to pay for that.
Right. I know with Jeeps, like they're made with cheap parts too. So
yeah, it is the cheap parts. Luckily for Jeeps, it's a lot easier to work on those. There's a big culture of putting in your own parts. So
do they have a lot of availability on parts?
yeah. So Jeep doesn't have a really wide range of vehicles, so it is easier to source parts and they are cheaper.
Gotcha. So now we're gonna move on to the questions section. Questions for Josh here, and he's got some answers. So, So what makes a car high quality overall?
Yeah, again, some of the things that we talked about, it's the quality of the parts, especially if you live in the northern climates. You want to think about the quality of the steel that they're made with, because they can rust out really easily if you have salt on the roads.
Mm-hmm.
You also want to think about the software accessibility, how easy it is to work on the vehicles. Like BMW, for example, they keep a lot of that behind the dealership, so you actually have to take it into a dealer. That doesn't necessarily mean it's low quality. Obviously, BMW is high quality, but it's something to take into consideration, is how sustainable it is going to be for the future. And so, obviously, how efficient it is, how fuel efficient, and how well designed it is in general. How the designers think about the entire car as opposed to just portions of it, like the interior and the engine and the suspension. So you want the designers to not be picking and pulling different parts of the car from borrowing like from a different model.
Gotcha. Okay. What are some aspects of the car people seem to most be drawn to? I would think like maybe color or, like
the look, the styling, that is a pretty big one. Obviously, you do want a car that is pleasing to look at. You also have to think about how comfortable it is to drive, how well it handles, and really depending on where you live. If you live in an area with rougher roads, that's
probably
gonna be more
interior
important.
too, right? Like the lights
Yeah.
and such.
Yeah, interior, the dash, the
Control
controls.
panel, basically.
Yeah, control panel. Because it's something that you're interacting with every day, so you want it to last and you want it to
It's kind of like a
not be annoying.
mini house / hideout kind of thing if you wanted to
Yeah.
do it that way. So.
Yeah, well, if you go to work every single day and you're driving 30 minutes, that's 10 hours a week that you're spending in the car. So
also, if you're crashing for like a lunch break or something in the car,
right,
Right,
you want it to be comfortable. Or people who do manual labor, they rely on their cars a lot more because that's kind of their livelihood. they need something that is going to get them to work every day, that has somewhere that they can store all their tools. So you also want to think about what the storage capacity is. Like if you can fold down the seats and get more storage space, that's pretty nice too. I would say people are also drawn to the features. So yeah,
Like music or
Bluetooth,
Bluetooth, yeah, or
the
maps.
the maps, navigation. So if you're buying a Tesla, for example, it's nice to have self-driving and lane assist. There are cars that have automatic like crash detection, so it can kind of tell if you're going to bump into another car. And yeah, like safety features. So if you have a family, kids, young kids, you'll want to think about how well it does in crash tests. So that's something that you can look up pretty easily. But Teslas and Subarus, they generally do well because they have a lower center of gravity. So that helps prevent it from flipping over.
Nice, nice. So is it better to be repairing your cars with do-it-yourself, or is it better to take it to a dealer?
Personally, I think it's better to do as many repairs yourself as you can. It does depend on how new the car is. If it's still under warranty, then you'll want to take it into warranty, because if you do a little work on it yourself, you could break that warranty. But if it's a used car or an older car, then I would say do as much of it yourself as you can. You can find information
On YouTube.
On YouTube, that's a really good source because you can actually watch them do it. So it's nice to be able to see like where the fasteners are, the bolts and everything, and how exactly the parts fit together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So, where can you find like good information about cars? Like, is there a good website or a good book you can look at?
Again, YouTube, that's lots of good information on there. If you're looking for information specific to your model, usually there are forums, like specific forums for that model.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like I drive a Ford Escape, so there's a website called Escape City, and you'll find a lot more detailed information there than you would if you just look on a generalized forum. Yeah, those are really good sources online. Generally, is you'll find lots of stuff on there.
Is there any advantages to electric cars compared to like a gas powered car,
Yeah, there are.
and disadvantages?
Yeah, we could talk about disadvantages too, for sure. There's reliability is a big one, just because there's a lot fewer parts, so you have a lot less that could go wrong. Electric motor is generally very simple. There's no oil to change, so less maintenance. It goes a lot longer without having to do any maintenance. And it's a lot easier to integrate some of the more advanced features like self-driving. It's pretty hard to do that on an electric vehicle just because there's more to control. Some of the cons, obviously, you have to worry about charging it. So
Shorter range, probably.
yeah,
too.
generally this is shorter range. A lot of the cars these days do have like 200-300 mile ranges, which is pretty decent. But if you're going on a road trip, you still have to plan out your stops.
Don't electric cars overheat sometimes too?
They can, yeah, and they don't really do well in extreme temperature ranges. So if you're out in like Arizona with extreme heat, you might not want to buy an electric car. Or if you're way up north where it gets really, really cold, the lithium-ion batteries actually lose capacity when it's super cold. So it's not the best for really, really cold environments. And also, heating requires a lot of energy too. So that's going to cut down your range quite a bit if you're using the heating in a very cold environment. And they can be a little bit harder to work on too. Parts are harder to find just because you generally need to have a specialist work on them. So that's not really something that you can DIY yourself as much, just because there's so much software.
Gotcha. I got one more question here. What is your opinion on turbos?
Turbos are really good for increasing the horsepower. So if you have a performance vehicle, you really need a turbo in your car. If you're just buying a car for everyday purposes, or a lot of manufacturers, I kind of mentioned this a bit earlier, they add turbos in because you can have a smaller engine, so that's lighter. You burn less fuel, but you can still have that power when you're accelerating or when you really need it. But the only issue is that turbos make the car a lot less reliable because they put a lot more stress on the engine. There's more airflow. The pistons are moving a lot quicker. So they generally last a lot less, and they can be expensive to replace or fix if they ever do break. But again, if you're buying it for a performance vehicle, if you're buying a performance vehicle that has a turbo in it, that's a good reason to get them. But if you're just looking for a reliable, fuel efficient car, I would go with a hybrid instead of a turbo car.
Gotcha. Alrighty, well, thank you for watching today's podcast. If you would like and subscribe, that would be great. This is Josh here, and I'm sure he'll be able to look at the comment section too and answer some questions.
Yeah, sure.
Like I said, we will have our next weekly podcast next week. And if you have any additional questions, like I said before, just leave them in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day.
All right, thanks for having me on, Philip.
Oh, no problem, Josh. All right, see you guys later.
Guys.